Alright, so, I've got two ideas for today's video, but this might end up like a double topic rant, but we'll see how far I get in the first topic. So, for those that I guess have been watching my videos for a while, mainly just like my two friends that I play D&D with, or that I started playing D&D with. It's mostly just those two. These videos are essentially kind of like, they're kind of a journal, really, where I kind of talk out loud about topics. That's all these videos really are. Because ultimately, what I'm trying to get at these videos is like perfection of DMing as a skill, which is impossible. Perfection of any skill is impossible. The road never ends. So it's always just, discussing ways to improve as a DM and as a player on each little topic. Ways you can, like what was I talking about the other day? Like a little shorter video. Yeah, like homebrew item design. Like, is it better to put, like, just throw spells on an item? Probably not. So, you probably shouldn't just throw spells on an item with no real thought. Just like, oh yeah, a vampiric sword, inflict wounds sounds cool, throw it on there. Like, why? No, not the point. So, just ways to improve. So, this video is going to be about loot and how to approach it and how to give it out and how to feel about it as a player, I guess. So I'm going to be using, as is my brand, real world examples. So one of the campaigns I'm in, it was going for a while, but I'm not going to discuss the status of the campaign right now. So it's set in a, like, I guess it's Arctic. I'm not sure the difference between like Arctic and subarctic. I'm not super versed on the differences between those two real world environments, but it's like an Arctic continent. Snow everywhere, it's cold, blah blah blah. So this campaign, pretty much the whole way, it's been very deadly. Everything is, like, almost every combat is a deadly combat. For a while, my character was going down at, like, basically every combat. Mostly because I kept getting, for some reason, I was getting hit with, like, 2 or 3 crits a combat. It just made no sense. But, not the point. So, there was a lot of loot in this campaign. And actually, that's something I wanted to kind of reach out to the DM, kind of ask him about, like, what his approach was, because I'm always second guessing myself when it comes to loot, ways to give it out, why to give it out, like ways to determine what it is, all those things. So, but I'm going to use this campaign as an example. There was a lot of loot in this campaign. And mostly, it was kind of in the form of, like treasure caches after a combat or after some puzzle. Usually something was done. Like, we did some sort of high pressure, like an encounter or a puzzle or cleared an area, whatever it is. The standard reasons you find loot. And there'd usually just be a few things in there. And also, there were kind of 2 phases to this campaign. We had a first party that we ended up TPKing with, and then a second party that we played for a lot longer. And the first party, we ended up not finding as much loot because that party didn't exist for as long. But the first kind of loot cache that we found was, it was all items. There was like one item tailored for each character. Like very obviously, like, you know, there was a short sword that added extra sneak attack dice for the rogue. There was a bow that gave my character, an arcane archer, an extra arcane shot per day. I forget the rest. But it was all stuff like that, tailored for each character, and there was like one item for each character, basically. So, that's kind of how it was with that party. But then when we came in with the second party was like had way more connections with each other. We were from this setting's equivalent of the Feywild, the Istrix Gardens is what we call what it was called. And you know, it was just a variation on the Feywild. There was like some other stuff, but like it was just kind of set up as our character's collective backstory origin place. We didn't really end up going into it too much, but that's just to get background. With that party, we did not really find like really tailored items. We just found lots of individual caches of stuff. I think one of the first big combats we did, we had several fights with Swaggin. First on a boat when we were coming in, then on another boat that was another docked boat. That was it. And then we kind of like set up, okay, we're going to go underwater and fight Swaggin in their territory. And then after we killed those Swaggin, we found a big cache of loot. And there was just like a bunch of stuff. There was, and after that combat, there was just a bunch of stuff. There was armor, there was like a fancy trident from the Swaggin general or king, chieftain, the big guy. Like, the biggest Swaggin had the biggest trident, and we took his trident. We ended up selling it because it was like, I don't remember exactly what it did, but its properties like didn't really speak to any of us. It was like, I think it was like a souped up trident of fish command. I'm probably wrong, but you know, it was something like that. We ended up selling that one. Before that, we did have like a Christmas session where like we fought a Christmas enemy. We did 2 of these in 2 different campaigns, like the same, like 2 days apart. So I'm mixing them up. I can't remember exactly. No, I gotta get gas. I think we fought like demonic Santa Claus and a bunch of reindeer, or maybe it was just the reindeer. I remember reindeer with like a laser breath weapon style thing. Anyway, and then we all got there was like a bag, and you roll to see what rarity item you pull out of it, and then you decide what item of that rarity you want. I think, yeah, that's how it was. Like, I think I rolled only rare, so I took like mithril armor. It's like mithril half plate or something, right? Yeah, something like that. But then as the campaign went on, there was more and more of this kind of idea where we just find caches of stuff, and it's no longer, and it wasn't tailored to our characters, which is neither good nor bad. That's an approach. I don't know if he was like rolling tables or just kind of like grabbing items that he think would make sense. Maybe he made his own table. He grabbed a bunch of items he thought would make sense for this campaign, put them in a big table, and then he would roll on that table. I'm guessing. I still want to pick his brain about it. So, point is, we didn't end up finding a lot of stuff that was tailored to our game. One of the other things about loot is like there was some crafting going on. I remember we got some wolf pelts, and somebody crafted that wolf pelt into like a cloak, and that cloak gave like it was ridiculous. It was like +2 AC, resistance to like 4 damage types. That was really strong. But so, you know, there was some reward for crafting. I like bought a +1 quarterstaff because my ranger was using a quarterstaff with Shillelagh, and that's something I'll get into. But again, we just kept finding caches of stuff, and generally what we found was extremely strong. Like, we were level 7, I think, and we found like a belt of Storm Giant Strength, a souped up Amulet of Health, and most of that stuff went to the Barbarian. So the Barbarian ended up with like 29 Strength, 26 or 24 Constitution, like just ridiculous. But one, like at the end of the campaign, recently, or the current state of the character, my character didn't really have a whole lot of stuff tailored to him. Not tailored to him, but he didn't have a whole lot of like really good stuff. Basically everything he had was like handed down from another character. Like, he had that White Wolf cloak, he had a Ring of Protection that we found in one of the caches, he had Gauntlets of Ogre Power that like the Barbarian didn't use anymore because they had a cloak, or they had the Storm Giant belt. The Storm Giant belt. They're like, all right, here. So he didn't have a whole lot of. Oh, he also had a really cool sword, but that sword was also handed down to somebody else. We used to have a fighter in the group, like a polearm master fighter. And we found this really cool sword that did like extra slashing damage, but it was also one of those like evolving items. It starts off as dormant, it goes to awakened and all that. And the fighter took it, I guess because he's the fighter. But that fighter ended up dropping out of the campaign, so I took the sword. Because nobody else was going to use it. And even he wasn't going to use it. He had a halberd that he's using. So, you know, my character, all of these items were kind of secondhand, and that's fine. But, so that's one approach to how you give out items. Just, you know, there's collections of stuff. Somebody can use it, somebody can't. Like, you know, you determine on your own. Stuff you can't use, you sell. But there was one set of items I remember, like this, like one of the second to last sessions we had. We found 2 really strong two-handed weapons. Like, they were so strong, you kind of have to use them. They were like, it was a great sword and a great axe. They were like both +3. They did like 2d8 or 2d12 extra damage. It was like, they were ridiculous. But only the Barbarian could really use those. Like, both my ranger and the other ranger, my ranger was a Shillelagh Wisdom ranger, but I got the Gauntlets of Ogre Power, so like now I'm strength. But the other ranger, he had a belt of like Stone Giant Strength, but that character had a 20 strength anyway. So so like, okay, the Barbarian took that axe, and then that greatsword is sitting around, and it's like kind of hard not to use. So the ranger ended up taking it. But you know, maybe I thought at some point I was gonna, like, my character was gonna get, you know, some sort of fancy quarterstaff, or maybe even just a sword that you could use Shillelagh on, or, you know, whatever. But, you know, for one reason or another, it didn't happen. It's probably because of the approach that the DM took, which I think is a perfectly fine approach. But ultimately, I think it's not the exact approach I would take. Because for me, the relative strength of the characters is a big concern for me, because I know some players are going to make weaker characters for one reason or another, whether it's they design a weaker character, or they end up with weaker stats, or, you know, they pick a concept that sounded cool and it just kind of doesn't work out. Like it just needs one or two things to make it like fully work. So, you know, what time is it? I got a minute. Finish this video. I don't park here. I park up there. So, basically, for me, I would definitely put a lot more like tailored items, at least like one or two for each individual party member, depending on what they're doing. Like if somebody makes like a really standard Battlemaster fighter with sharpshooter and a hand crossbow using crossbow expert, that's not a whole lot I have to do for that character. They're super capable in combat. But for someone like the Shillelagh Ranger that I was playing, for a while I was doing no damage. And then also, so I tried to switch what I was doing, but just switch exact game plans. I tried to start using like Summon Beast and Summon Fey, like, you know, lean more into the spells because I had a 20 wisdom at the time. And because of the relative like difficulty of all the encounters, those spells just kind of didn't do much. Like the Summon Beast and the Summon Fey, they'd soak a few hits that were otherwise hit our characters, but it wasn't super impactful. So, you know, my character ended up being relatively weak compared to some of the other characters that had all these like really strong items and just big walls of stats, basically. And like the other ranger had this helmet that could summon a Reaper Spirit, which is like a really high CR monster. He could just summon it once a day. So it's like, all right, I guess my summons are kind of shit compared to that. I mean, mine were based on spell slots, so I could do a lot more of them, but you know, there's nuance there. You know, maybe I'll do. That's kind of all I have right now. But this video is more about like kind of thinking about loot and ways to do it and what to pay attention to on characters, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's all I got for you today. Maybe I'll do another one of these sooner or later.